So I'm thrilled to be here with you today, in person. So it's lovely to be able to make contact and connect. And at the heart of it, that's what I'm excited to talk to you about today. How we can help our young people feel more connected to themselves and those around them. So I know Asper's given me a brief introduction, but just before we dive in, I'm a therapeutic counsellor and coach, and I blend evidence-based approaches to help young people and grown-ups explore their tricky, prickly, uncomfortable, big emotions, and have more compassion, connection, and comfortability with themselves and those around them. I've had the opportunity to work in community education for over 20 years, and I currently run a private practice. And I'm undertaking doctoral research, Centre of Excellence in Mental Health in Schools, which focuses on student-teacher relationships and the influence of mental health and well-being of school children. So I've learned a lot along the way, and the other thing that I kind of want to share is some of that learning has been through lived experience. So living and walking the world as a neurodivergent person. And so today, really, the invitation is, so I know we've heard lots of science this morning, but the invitation is to come on this journey and kind of the lens of what I'm going to touch on today and some ideas are from my experience with working with some of the youngsters and young people and parents at Corpal, and some of the tools and tips and tricks that have worked for us. So take what you need, be open in terms of maybe thinking you are the expert about your child, and by no means am I an expert here. So take what you need and adapt it, or what might look like it might work for you. And yeah, these are some practical things that we've done along the way. So before we go to the tools, what have we done together so far? So with Corpal, we've carried out 2 impactful projects, supported those affected living with DCC. So the first was a life skills project that worked directly with the young people. And it was really about creating a space that participants could voice their concerns, challenges, and work through specific challenges and goals that they had for themselves. So it was a space that would enable them to kind of begin at their own pace. Alongside this, it was creating opportunities to nurture social skills, emotional awareness, regulation, and providing them with tools and strategies to navigate the unique challenges and to be able to kind of work towards the goals that they have. So as you can see, this is a small snapshot of some of the participants communicating in a shared WhatsApp group that we have. And it really shows their ability to how they've engaged with some of the strategies, and how they become embedded in their kind of learning and everyday kind of being. And as you can see in the top one, it's like, I find I didn't have to use it anymore, it just became part of the process. And this week we met weekly on Zoom online. So this is something that we did, with distance between us, but created this sense of connection using the technology. And also, one of the ways that, something we've discussed as a group, is how that sense of connection in the WhatsApp group, the space, is also a form of regulation that has happened. So the second project we did was we ran a parenting circle designed to support parents of the young adults and children impacted by DCC. And these sessions offered parents a space to share their aspirations, concerns, and challenges, and explore how they can best support both themselves and their children in emotional regulation, resilience, growth, and maintaining a positive mental attitude. So we had a series of therapeutic coaching sessions. Parents were given the opportunity to check in, to upload, to kind of, bring parts of their challenges as parents who were supporting children who are experiencing DCC. And then also tools to ground, regulate themselves. So that's what's been done so far. What I also, before we move on, wanted to mention is that I'm going to offer some tools, like I said, and strategies that I have found that work. I will be sending a handout around about later, so you don't have to kind of be writing all of the things down. There will be a handout that follows. So, emotional literacy. So what is emotional literacy? And like we've seen earlier on, one of the main underlying challenges expressed by both parents and young people was navigating social aspects and interactions while living with DCC. And that is really kind of one of the things that why I've been asked to kind of talk a little bit about what is emotional literacy and why it's crucial for improving social interactions and overall well-being. So emotional literacy is made up of essentially the ability to understand your emotions, the ability to listen to others, empathize with their emotions, and then express appropriately the appropriate response to that. So to be emotionally literate is to be able to handle emotions in a way that improves your personal power and improves the quality of your life, connections between people, makes it possible to kind of cooperate, and fosters that sense of belonging. So, emotional literacy is the skill that helps build emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence has these 5 key components that we can see. And I think it's really important. One thing I really wanted to convey is why I focused on it as emotional literacy, is that like any other literacy, it's something that it's a skill. It's something that can be taught. It's not an innate talent, which means that it can be learned, it can be worked on, it can be developed. Just like anything else that we learn, we need to chunk it down. And so today, I'm going to be focusing on just 2 of the foundational skills that I believe are essential to equip our young people with, and that's self-awareness and the ability to self-regulate. So I think that when we're thinking about, how do we really help our young people navigate this domain of social awareness, the invitation is to really chunk it down, and like we saw earlier about the process of just focusing on one thing at a time, which is why I wanted to kind of show you the different layers to it, and just focus on these 2 big ideas today of self-regulation and self-awareness. So when I ask, often when I work with parents and I ask, what is it that you want for your young people? What is it that we want for our young people? Happy. We want them to be happy. We want them to, anything else? Happy. Healthy. Kind. Strong. So, as a parent, I get it. We want them to be happy, we want them to be kind, we want them to be strong, we want them to be part of a long society, and that makes sense. We're wired for safety, and that means that we tend to shy away often from the hard, the prickly, the uncomfortable parts. And this raises a challenge when we can't kind of really sit with and be with the emotional discomfort. And we tend to focus on the nicer feelings of emotion. We tend to want to teach, and of course it's important to teach our children about to be kind, to be loving, to share. But we equally saw early on in the presentations that, and as you all know, that children and young people living with DCC often have trouble picking up the social cues of the full range spectrum of emotions. And that's what I wanted to kind of invite you to think about today. To take the opportunity to, particularly for young people, sorry, one second, just wanted to kind of move this here. So to really think about, why is it so important for us to maybe teach our children the full range of emotions, the full spectrum, the other ends, and what might that look like? So how will they know when somebody is being mean? How will they know when they're being excluded? How will they know what the boundary of the emotional and the physical boundaries are? What is the appropriate response in this? How will they know when they're being taken advantage of? And so I wanted to share just 2 tools about some of it that we've used in our workshops. One is awareness. Bringing it into awareness and talking about the whole host and range of human experiences that we have. So being really mindful about when we are engaging with our children, not just pointing out, what it looks like when somebody's happy, or when it's, what it looks like to share and to be kind, but to normalize the human experience of what it feels like when somebody's being prickly, when it's uncomfortable. And one way of doing that is to use yourself as an example, as a modeling, as a tool, to find appropriate moments to navigate the emotionally tricky situations and walk them through it. Walk them through your own emotional experience and how you handle it. As an educator, I always think about I do, we do, you do, and as learning, that's kind of the framework that I go by. And so one of the things that we talked about in our groups was the sharing of this is what it feels like for me, and identifying it in those moments and using it as an example. Another way that you could do this, and like I said, you're the expert, you know your children, and you know what they might engage with, is helping them to identify these tricky emotions and scenarios while they might be watching TV, or when in the use of books, or in using play. For the really young ones, maybe using the use of Legos or figures that they might engage with in terms of toys. And in that, the invitation is to slowing down that process and really walking through the nuances of what do you think is happening in this situation? What do you think is happening between the interaction on TV and pausing? Like, what's your perception of this? And getting curious about how are they perceiving it? And then helping them identify any emotional blind spots they might have, and speaking through what that might be in terms of social cues. So pointing out the social, the facial recognition, pointing out the tone of voice, the pace of speaking for somebody, and helping them identify the rest of the contextual features. The other thing I think is helpful is to focus on one emotion at a time. So the invitation is, if you are thinking about, maybe I want to speak to my young person about what it might feel when somebody is being angry, focusing just on what anger might present as, and in a range of situations, a range of contexts. So we know that it could look like perhaps an outburst, it could look like passive aggression, it could look like a body movement. There could be a whole range, and exposing them to the range of different situations and contexts that it might present in. And again, using the same tools. So it could be, one is looking at it in the context of a visual cue. The other is maybe perhaps asking them to role play it with you. Another way is, again, like I mentioned, through play. The other thing that we found useful is using scripting to help them have language. To help them have language to how they might articulate themselves in these situations. So it could be useful that once we've covered one emotion, The we do part is creating a script with your young person and showing them this is what it could sound like and practicing that with them. And when we're talking about practice, of course, it's in fun, light moments where there's connection, so short bursts of time. And hopefully, being able to walk these scenarios in the we do in the safe space, they're able then to go out and have, like we saw in the earlier slide with the tools, that are able to connect with it in a way that is, they feel confident with the you do, that they're able to grasp onto some of these tools and have access to them. So, self-regulation is the second kind of component that I wanted to really talk about. And self-regulation is the ability to be able to essentially cope with the ebbs and flows of life and appropriately navigate and respond to the feel-good and the prickly emotions. And one of the things that I have found in my experience of working with people who are non-neurotypical is using the body to regulate and using this concept of co-regulation. So being able to be in connection with somebody that can also help bring down our heightened experience, help us to ground, help us to feel contained and safe at a really somatic level. So the first thing that I need to talk about when we talk about co-regulation is really that there are two parts of it. You are in this as much as they are. So making sure that you're able to check in with yourself first. So where am I? What do I need in this moment? How am I feeling in my body? Am I able to be present and able to really slow myself down before I'm connecting with my young person? Because the ideal context of co-regulation is predictable, is safe, and is sensory friendly. So, slowing down your body movements, aligning with the internet kind of biological responses, signals safety and calmness. And this could look like being really intentional with how you move your body during those moments, slow and soft movements, thinking about the tone of your voice and how it can kind of contribute to some of that external sensory stimulation. So using fewer words, speaking slowly and softly, and building that sense of safety. One of the other things that we found was helpful is using the breath and the rhythms of the breath and the body. So for example, when your young person is feeling overwhelmed and is feeling dysregulated, one way could be using your body to regulate your breath. So it could be 4 breaths in, 4 breaths out, and then asking them to mirror and copy that process and syncing your breathing to each other, helping them come back to that level of safety and containment that is being mirrored. And this can really help their nervous system kind of come back to balance. The other reason I think that it's really important to use the body is to kind of help them understand the biological cues that will also present for them. So, when they're feeling dysregulated, it's also important to point out for them to point awareness to and show awareness to, I see that you're feeling angry. You might notice that your heart is racing. that your palms are feeling sweaty, and helping them kind of also bring that into awareness of what's their experience in their body, what's happening for them, so that they can start to connect that this looks like anger, this feels like joy, this feels like irritation, and being able to allow them to make those connections to their bodily experience. The other thing that, in terms of using the body and when we're thinking about emotions, is what we stored in there at a somatic level. So, before, at the beginning of time, we're wired for safety and connection, and so we're really alert to danger. And so when we pick up cues that feel uncomfortable, that feel like they might incite a flight or fight response in us, something happens in our body, and we are compelled to either want to run, to hide, to freeze, and this is a bodily response. Now, often we're not being chased by dinosaurs at this point in time. There's no sometimes impending danger in that way, but we haven't actually completed the stress cycle. So it's stored in the body, because before we would run, we were chased by a dinosaur, or there's some big danger, we want to run, and that sense of running does something in terms of release of the stress in the body. And so when your young person is feeling dysregulated, it could be really helpful to, again, complete the stress cycle and ask them to use their body in terms of movement. So that could look like doing with them, let's jump on the spot, let's run around the room, let's hop like bunnies, let's do 10 star jumps. It's something that is activity and movement based that helps complete the stress cycle and take it out of their bodies. I know in our groups we did like dance parties, and that was one thing that really worked for us, where we put on the invitation was we'd find a favourite song that really kind of they enjoyed moving to, and we put it on, and there's no rules, you just move your body, you need to just get it out. And so having these go-to kind of tips and tricks of let's just shake it off, or let's breathe together in that mirror experience has been really, really helpful. At the beginning you saw, one of the messages about I didn't have to use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique anymore, and it's a tool that we introduced at the beginning of our sessions and practiced as we go along, and it's something that really worked in feedback from the participants, and it's something I want to share with you as parents and carers that you could possibly try. So again, using the body and bringing back to a young person in that moment of dysregulation to the present, to what's happening in their experience in the here and now. So that could look like asking them to look around and name 5 things that they can see in the room. So 5 things that you can see. 4 things that they can feel. And this is in the immediate, it could be the jumper that they're wearing, the touch of the table, literal physical sensations. 3 things that they can hear around the room. 2 things that they can smell, and 1 thing that they can taste. And by going through these steps, it again helps them come back to this moment, but using in the really kind of biological, physical, sensory stimulus that is around. The other 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 I've just remembered that we talked about and that participants really said they found useful is in these moments of where they feel dysregulated, and again it was around social settings. It was launching themselves like a rocket ship and not allowing anything to be kind of done. And it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I'm in a rocket ship and I'm just going to engage and I'm just going to go. And sometimes it was just the movement of let's do this, let's go, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, counting out loud, and then stepping into the next activity that they had to do. They found very useful. So the invitation to you is, again, to think about the different ways that you can expose your young people to some of the more uncomfortable, harder emotions that we have, to find ways that might work for them. And as you can tell, this is not my regular gig of standing up and talking to in front of a big crowd. And so I'm around through the day. Please do come and reach out to me. And if it is a tailored situation where you think, I'm really struggling with this, we can kind of maybe together look at how we might differentiate some of these tools and what could this look like for your youngster that at an appropriate level in terms of what they're also into. But one thing that I did want to mention is like with any learning at any point, whether it's atypical, neurodivergent, is it takes time. Go slow with them, but also go slow with yourself. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes repetition, multiple repetition. And I know there's a few educators in the room, and here it's about, teaching it in different ways. So like I said, it's not just this is what it looks like in this context, but being able to teach it in different ways with different tools, because sometimes it lands at different times and different things get through to them. So really finding and tinkering with it what works best, but taking it one step at a time. So breaking that, when we're looking at emotional literacy, breaking the skills into smaller chunks and going slow. And also bringing to awareness of equally, if not, somewhat more, because we want them to be protected. We want them to go out, and we want them to be able to also feel safe, and teaching the other end of the spectrum. So you will get a handout with all the tools kind of spoken about in steps, and contact details. And I'm around through the day to have individual or kind of personal conversations. And I know Aspire and I have been talking about kind of being able to create more groups for young people, and I think it would be really interesting and really helpful to kind of hear some of the challenges that you might be facing with regards to your child, and really how we might be able to support them in smaller settings, or if they've kind of hit a different part of their development cycle or going off into the world, where it might be starting high school or higher education, that kind of thing, how we might be able to tailor some of the groups to meet those needs. So you can, this is some ways that you can also get in touch with me. But I am here through the day, and so feel free to also just catch me and we can talk through that. Thank you.